and hours after he landed, he'd start to slow down. There was absolutely no way of telling how much time had elapsed once that happened, for the only clocks that did not go haywire on Pluto were spring-wind clocks, and there hadn't been a spring-wind clock in the solar system for 150 years. Result? On Pluto, mayhem would slow down. Once he reached Pluto's normal time rate, it might take him, say, 10 minutes to run, top speed, from point A to point B, 15 yards apart. Subjectively, a split second of time would have gone by in that period. 2 days would seem like less than an hour, and Mayhem would have no way of judging how much less. If he didn't get off Pluto in 2 days, he would die. If he didn't land, House Bartok, growing desperate and trying to scare him off or trying to keep control of the 100 girls while he made a desperate and probably futile attempt to repair the damaged Mozart's lady, might become violent. Mayhem called Neptune and said, "Bartok crash-landed on Pluto. Geographical coordinates, north latitude 33 degrees 4 minutes, west longitude 18 degrees even. I'm going down. That's all." He didn't wait for an answer. He brought the space-bound coffin down a scant 3 miles from Mozart's lady. Here, though the tundra of Pluto was buckled and convoluted so that 2 low jagged ranges of snow-clad hills separated the ships. Again, Mayhem didn't wait. He went outside, took a breath of near-freezing air, and stalked up the first range of hills. He carried a blaster buckled to his belt. When he saw the scout ship come down, Bartok didn't wait either. He might have waited had he known anything about what Pluto did to the time sense, but he did not know. He only knew, after a quick inspection, that the controls of Mozart's lady had been so badly damaged that repair was impossible. He knew, too, that the scout ship had reported his whereabouts. He had, on regaining consciousness, been in time to intercept the radio message. True, it would take any other Neptune-station ship close to 2 weeks to reach Pluto, so Bartok had some temporal leeway. But obviously, whoever was pursuing him in the one-man ship had not come down just to sit and wait. He was out there in the snow somewhere. Well, Bartok would go out too, would somehow manage to elude his pursuer, to get behind him, reach the scout ship, and blast off in it. And, in the event that anything went wrong, he would have a hostage. He went amirships to select one. Went with his desperation shackled by an iron nerve, and a blaster in his hand. "Very lucky," Matilda Moriarty was saying, trying to keep the despair from her voice. "We have some cuts and bruises, but no serious casualties. Why, we might have all been killed." "Lucky," she says. "We're marooned here. Marooned with a killer." Before the widow Moriarty could defend her choice of words, if she was going to defend them, House Bartok came into the rear lounge, where the entire symphony and its chaperone was located. They would have locked the door, of course. They had locked it ever since they had learned who Bartok was, but the door, buckled and broken, had been one of the casualties of the crash landing. "You," Bartok said. He meant Jane Cummings. "Me?" "Yes, you. We're going outside." "Outside?" "That's what I said. Let's get a move on." Jane Cummings didn't move. The widow Moriarty came between her and Bartok. "If you must take anyone, take me," she said bravely. "The girl." Still, the widow Moriarty didn't move. House Bartok balled his fist and hit her. 3 of the girls caught her as she fell. None of them tried to do anything about Bartok, who had leveled his blaster at Jane Cummings. Trembling, she went down the companionway with him. A fierce cold wind blew as they opened the airlock door. It looked like a sea serpent floundering in the snow. only it was caught in the act of floundering, like an excellent candid shot of a sea serpent floundering in snow. Its movements were too slow for Mayhem's eyes to register. Which meant, he realized gratefully, that he hadn't begun to slow down yet. He had to be careful, though. If he were Bartok, he would make immediately for the scout ship. It would be his only hope. Realizing this, Mayhem had gone through deep snow for what he judged to be 15 minutes, until he had reached a spine of rock protruding from the snow. Then he had doubled back, now leaving no footprints, along the spine. He was waiting in the first low range of hills, not 400 yards from the scout ship, his blaster ready. When Bartok prowled into view, Mayhem would shout a warning. If Bartok didn't heed it, Mayhem would shoot him dead. It seemed like an airtight plan. And it would have been, except for two things. First, Bartok had a hostage. And second, Pluto time was beginning to act on Mayhem. He realized this when he looked at the sea serpent again. The long neck moved with agonizing slowness. The great gray-green bulk of the monster, 60 feet long, shifted slowly, barely perceptibly, in the snow. Mountains of powdery snow moved and settled. The spade-shaped head pointed at Mayhem. The tongue protruded slowly, hung suspended, forked and hideous, then slowly withdrew. The neck moved again, 10 feet long, sinuous, and faster. Faster? Not really. Mayhem was slowing down. Then he saw Bartok and the girl. They were close together. Bartok held her arm. Walking toward the scout ship, they were too far away and too close together for Mayhem to fire. Bartok would know this and wouldn't heed any warning. So Mayhem didn't give any warning. He left the spine of rock and rushed down through the snow toward the space-bound coffin. A low rumble of sound broke the absolute stillness. It was the monster, and now that his own hearing had slowed down, Mayhem was able to hear the slower cycles of sound. How much time had really passed, he didn't know. How much time did he have left before death came swiftly and suddenly because he had been too long in his temporary body? He didn't know that either. He sprinted toward the scout ship. At least it felt like he was sprinting. He didn't know how fast he was really moving. But the sea serpent creature was coming up behind him faster. No place near what would have been its normal apparent speed, but faster. Mayhem, his breath coming raggedly through his mouth, ran as fast as was feasible. So did Bartok and the girl. It was Bartok, spotting Mayhem on the run, who fired first. Mayhem fell prone as the raw zing of energy ripped past. The sea serpent-like creature behind him bellowed. And reared. It didn't look like a sea serpent any longer. It looked like a dinosaur, with huge solid rear limbs, small forelimbs, and a great head with an enormous jaw. And speed. Now it could really move. Subjectively, time seemed normal to Mayhem. Your only basis was subjective. Time always seemed normal. But Mayhem knew, as he got up and ran again, that he was now moving slower than the minute hand on a clock. Slower, as objective time, as measured in the solar system at large, sped by. He tripped as the creature came behind him. The only thing he could do was prop up on an elbow in the snow and fire. Raw energy ripped off the two tiny forelimbs, but the creature didn't falter. It rushed by Mayhem, almost crushing him with the hind limbs, each of which must have weighed a couple of tons. It lumbered toward Bartok and Jane Cummings. Turning and starting to get up, Mayhem fired again. His blaster jammed. Then the bulk of the monster cut off his view of Bartok and the girl and the scout ship. He heard the girl scream. He ran toward them. Jane Cummings had never